What's going on, Bills Mafia? I'm Fernando Schmude, that's your leading the charge. And today I'm going to talk about the Bills free agency happening so far. Brandon Beane making some moves already. And for some people, it's been a slow free agency so far. For other people, it's been what was expected, right? But we're going to talk the Bills free agency moves, what we can wait for next from Brandon Beane, trying to to improve this roster, right, and to make it better for the next season. And we're gonna analyze all the moves, the Bills players that are going elsewhere, the new reinforcements that are arriving at One Bills Drive. We're gonna talk a little bit about everything, so feel free to join me today to talk in the comment section in the chat. It will be a pleasure to interact with you and hear from you also. What do you think about the Bills move so far, and what are your expectations going forward with this season, with all these moves that Brandon Beane is making so far in this Bills roster? So, Bills Mafia, for you that are in America today, I'm starting 1 hour later, right, with your daylight savings time changing. The Leading the Charge episode on Friday will change as well. Every Friday at 1 p.m. East, right, not at noon anymore, because of the daylight saving times change in the US, and I'm obviously not there, so I don't get impacted by this time. So that's why the Leading the Charge is starting for you 1 hour later, and it's gonna continue this way going forward. This episode will be live also will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It will be available there right after this show ends live here on YouTube via Buffalo Rumblings. So you can search it and download and listen on your favorite podcast platform as well. And Itamar is joining us. Good afternoon to Itamar. And feel free, Bills Mafia, to join me and to talk via chat and give me your opinion on all the moves. So without further ado, let's start looking at what happened so far in this free agency. I feel like, obviously, it's been a bit of a slow free agency for the Bills and Brandon Beane. Kind of expected because of our cap situation. We couldn't expect the Bills making a lot of splash moves, and we couldn't really expect big free agent additions. As fans, we always have a little bit of hope of being surprised by a splash move or a surprising trade or something like that. But this year, the room for this kind of move was really small, and maybe the biggest surprise was the Bills being in the conversation for Eric Armstead when he got cut by the 49ers, when he couldn't agree on an extension and got cut. But at the end of the day, he picked the place where he could get more money, and it wasn't the Bills, obviously. That was maybe the flashiest move that almost happened. It was the interest was real. The Bills, there were even people announcing him as a Bill, but he chose the Jaguars over the Bills and went after the money. And totally normal in free agency, it happens. But now and then, Brandon Beane adjusted and made other moves, and I will throw the moves on the screen so you can, alongside me, follow and we can opine on everything. Tom is commenting here. Welcome to the show, Tom. And according to Tom, we are drafting all defensive players now, with probably making reference to Curtis Samuel addition at wide receiver. Tom, I'm not so sure, man. I think, yes, obviously there are more holes on the defensive side of the ball, but I will talk in a bit about it, and I think we can get some surprise on the defensive side of the ball as well. And Brian Smith is there. Let's wide receiver is still a high priority at number 1 or number 2 pick, no doubt, Brian. I really feel like wide receiver still is a high priority, no doubt in my mind. I will talk about the Curtis Samuel addition, and I feel like he doesn't, by any means, um, diminish the need for a wide receiver 2 and for the need for a playmaker outside. Curtis Samuel isn't a true X wide receiver, a true boundary wide receiver. He's a piece to be moved around. He's no doubt an improvement over Deontay Hardy as your gadget wide receiver. Um, he's a guy that has familiarity with Joe Brady already, and Joe Brady knows how to use him, right? So he's one more piece to be moved around, and the Bills have a lot of this kind of pieces right now because Khalil Shakir is this kind of wide receiver, obviously, and Stephon Diggs, as he ages, he's becoming more and more this kind of wide receiver as well, needing to see more snaps inside. We saw since Brady took over as our offensive coordinator how he had to scheme some touches to Diggs, lining him up in the slot and throwing some screen passes, lining him up even in the backfield, and he got even some run and some rushes, right? Some opportunities to rush the ball, and it isn't the ideal place and the ideal way to use Stephon Diggs. So Stephon Diggs gotta be your number 1. He gotta still be a capable number 1, beating people and threatening people in the intermediary routes, in the deep routes. He gotta still be a guy that can beat guys one-on-one, can run crispy routes, can be a nightmare outside as well, and especially outside. So we can use Curtis Samuel more in this role that we saw Diggs last season with Brady, lining up in the backfield, lining up in the slot, getting some screen touches, and having the burst to take those kind of touches for big gains. Because Diggs, despite some people right now being very down already on Stephon Diggs, I feel like he still can be a productive number 1. He obviously, it seems like he's losing a step, but he had some snaps before the playoffs where he could beat Jalen Ramsey easily for a deep throw, and unfortunately Josh missed him. And before that, against the Patriots, he beat again another cornerback from the Patriots deep easily, and Josh missed him again. And obviously in that fatidic play in the playoffs where he could beat his man, and he was open downfield, and unfortunately he dropped the ball, but he had the it's a miss. It's when he gets open deep, it's not always on speed, right? It's a mix of changing his pace, changing his especially his pace, right, or in his routes, threatening with double moves and getting open deep. We saw Stevie Johnson in the past doing that so well, right? So it's not always on speed. And when Stephon Diggs beats people downfield, especially the cream of the crop like Ramsey or even Snead in that play against the Chiefs, it's not only on speed. It's not because he still has great speed, but because he knows how to threaten people with his routes and how to sell a shorter route and then punish people going deep. So he still can do that, and the Bills need him doing that so he can an efficient number 1 target. And then you can have Dalton Kincaid, you can have Khalil Shakir, those up and coming guys, and now Curtis Samuel being able to be used via screen passes, via jet motions, or even lining up in the backfield. I feel Samuels is a really good player in this sense. But despite having the speed, Samuels isn't a deep threat like we just saw Hollywood Brown signing with the Chiefs. Hollywood Brown is a guy that makes the most of his catches downfield, and he's a deep threat, a real threat there downfield. And Curtis Samuel has the speed, but he isn't this kind of wide receiver. He isn't in the modes that even Brandon Beane mentioned in one of his recent interviews about Ted Ginn Jr. for the Panthers. Curtis Samuel has the speed, but he's more of a guy like Hardy, or like what Hardy was supposed to be, a guy with speed, but to gain yards after catch, not necessarily to go deep and threat the defenses downfield. He has this potential. He can do it here and there, but it's not his specialty. It's not how he made his money so far in this league, and it's not. I don't see him becoming this deep threat for the Bills since he's never been this kind of guy in his NFL career. Joe Brady knows it perfectly. He had him. He used him, and I feel like he is a reinforcement for the Bills. The Bills wide receiver room is better with Curtis Samuel on the roster, especially at the value that Brandon Beane could get him, right? Because at $8 million per year, it wasn't expected. In every exercise I did here with my mock off seasons, mock free agencies, I always try to go after Curtis Samuel, but he always was over 10 million, like 11 million, 12 million, even 13 million per year. Spotrac had him in this in this value, right? In this range. But Brandon Beane could get him by 8 million per year, a 3-year deal. It's a good contract over everything. It's a really good contract. That's a piece that it will contribute with your team, right? Samuels is still Curtis Samuels is still 26, 27 years old, so he has he can be very productive in those 3 years for the Bills, and can be a valuable piece for this offense, and a valuable piece for Josh Allen, a guy that can really make things happen after the catch. And I feel like the Bills really got better with this addition. Some people are scared because they believe the addition of Curtis Samuel means no wide receiver in number 1 pick, right? And despite it making some sense, obviously the Bills are a little bit better right now, and they aren't pressed, they aren't against the wall, needing to draft a wide receiver at the first round in the NFL draft, because obviously you have Diggs, you have Kincaid, you have Shakir, you have Cook out of the backfield, and now you have Curtis Samuel. Maybe this rookie will need to fight for some snaps and fight for some looks. Obviously he will, but I don't feel like it totally eliminates the Bills going wide receiver in the round 1, because if we look at the Bills wide receiver room last season, we got our replacement for Sherfield in Mac Hollins, right? And Hollins doubles down as a replacement for Siran Neal, who signed with the Dolphins and was a great special teamer, a great gunner, and Hollins can play this role as well. And with Samuel, you have your replacement for Deontay Hardy, who was expected to be a big part of this offense and a difference maker with his burst and yard after catch potential, but it never materialized for the Bills. And now Curtis Samuel offers more of a sure thing in this role, right? And he offers even more than what Hardy could offer in this role. Obviously, 1 year ago, we weren't as high as on Shakir as we are right now. Shakir is more proven right now. In the last playoffs, we could see Khalil Shakir establishing himself as a true weapon in the slot. Shakir is one of the most bursty wide receivers in the league. He doesn't have, he isn't the fastest guy with final speed, but his burst is real. He's faster than people give him credit for. And he's another guy alongside Samuel that can be used on those screens, can be used on those trick plays and as a gadget wide receiver. So you have two in this mode now with Shakir and Samuel. Two guys that can offer more than what Diggs offered with screen passes last season, or coming out of the backfield and all those ways that we saw Diggs being used by Brady. So the Bills got better, and the Bills replaced Sherfield and they replaced Hardy. Obviously, if Samuel played very well, if Mac Hollins takes advantage of his opportunities, they can kind of moonlight and replace a little bit of the snaps that we saw Gabe Davis having. Khalil Shakir can replace a little bit of the snaps and looks that we saw Gabe Davis having. But we still have this role to be taken, all right? And it should be um, it should be figured out in the draft with a draft pick. The chances that it's going to happen in round one diminished a little bit with Samuels in the fold, sure, but it didn't. It's not like no chance the Bills are drafting a wide receiver number in the first round anymore. The Bills are just not pressing themselves against it. They are just not putting themselves against the wall and being obligated to draft a wide receiver in round one. We know it's a deep draft class at the wide receiver position, and maybe at the 60 overall pick, we still can draft a very good wide receiver capable of filling in as your number two, right? And Samuel, Shakir, even Hollins, those guys give the rookie wide receiver the Kincaid treatment from a year ago when we drafted Kincaid. Having Dawson Knox in the roster, having Dawson Knox as our number one tight end, and Kincaid could he was brought in slowly, developedly, without being pressed into playing since day one. And some people can see it as a negative because he didn't get as many opportunities as some people wanted, but he had his time to learn from Dawson Knox, to see the offense from outside, to learn from a pro ahead of him how he does the things, and we could see the growth from Kincaid as the year went on. So I feel like the Bills wide receiver two, or the guy drafted in the obviously next April, he won't be under pressure to come in and produce since day one, being a total dominant guy outside. Okay, you will be able to bring him on and to let him learn and to let him see Diggs doing his thing, let him see Mac Hollins doing his thing blocking, let him see Shakir and Samuel doing their thing, right? And obviously getting his snaps, being part of the rotation, making some splash plays here and there, because this guy probably gonna have a high potential, right, and a big time play ability. So, but at the same time, you won't need to deal with some rookie mistakes snap after snap. We'll give Josh Allen and this rookie time to build a chemistry, to build confidence, and to become really a dangerous tandem. So I really like the signing, and I feel like it's a good contract, and that's a move that the Bills couldn't pass on. I think really helps the offense, and it also helps the wide receiver that they're going to draft next April to come in and to learn and to see how to do things and then get into the field and produce. So Leo asked me to analyze the Samuel arriving and his impact, right, especially in Shakir's evolution. So I feel like I already did it in this comment, and I feel like the Bills made a good move. Brandon Beane made a good move there, and he couldn't pass on Samuel for that value. It's valuable, and even thinking going forward, we have some questions going forward. The Bills didn't touch Stephon Diggs' contract, right? They haven't, at least yet, and it seems the Bills want some flexibility next season or in 2 years to move on from Stephon Diggs when the time arrives, right? Because we don't know. We don't know if he's really losing a step. We don't know if he really can't fit into what Brady wants for his O, right? We don't know. And so it's difficult to be tied up to his wide receiver and not being able to move him if you want for some reason, right? And we saw it in the past. It happened to everybody. It happened to Eric Moulds when he needed to move on from him. It happened to Lee Evans. It happened to Stevie Johnson, right? And Stevie wasn't even done when the Bills moved on from him. He was still very capable. So it doesn't mean that Diggs gonna be totally washed up when the Bills decide to move on from him, right? So it might be next year. It might be in 2 years. But the Bills are letting the door open. And that's why I feel like it is still a must. It's still very important to draft a wide receiver in round one this season. I'm totally still in favor of doing so, because most of the guys that will be available at number 28 this year or around this pick, right? they wouldn't be available around this pick in other regular drafted classes. Will be there because this draft class it has three monsters that should go in the top 10. So the Bills gotta take advantage of that and draft a guy at the round one this season so they can take advantage of this special draft class, so they can identify the guy that they really believe has some potential and can be a number one down the road, and they should go after him. And for me, this guy is Adonai Mitchell. I believe this guy has total number one potential down the stretch. He's still young, so it would be great for him to be in this wide receiver room, to learn from Diggs, to learn from Samuels, from Shakir, from Hollins, because A.D. Mitchell has some size as well, right? And get his snaps and produce a little bit, and so he can get the feeling and can start to develop without being pressured into production as soon as he arrives. So I feel like Adonai Mitchell is this guy. That's just me. Maybe the Bills agree. Maybe the Bills have another guy. But if they have their guy that they really believe this guy is going to be a number one, they got to draft him in round one still, because that's the perfect opportunity to doing so. Brandon Beane in the past said, it's difficult because we don't draft early, so we can't get a guy like Jamar Chase or this kind of guys because we don't draft in top 10. So that's his opportunity maybe to draft a top 10, top 15 wide receiver in other drafts that will fall down to around 28 this year. And I believe Adonai Mitchell is this kind of talent. I would go after him, but we'll see what Brandon Beane does regarding the wide receiver position. So, Bills Mafia, hit that like button, subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings channel. Don't miss any of our content. This episode will be available on Spotify podcast right after the show finishes live here on YouTube, Buffalo Rumblings channel. So I will throw on I told you already, talked about Samuel and the wide receiver in general, the wide receiver room, right? And I will throw on the screen our own Buffalo Rumblings on Sarah Larson's post from yesterday, where she listed all the Bills moves so far this offseason. So thank you so much, Sarah. And I'm gonna use this post to go after every name on the list and analyze what I really believe about which guys I really believe can contribute, and what do I think about all those moves. So first move here, Mitch Morse, right? Going to the Jaguars. And I feel like Mitch Morse still has gas on the tank. He still can be a pretty good center, and he's going to be this kind of center for the Jaguars. I question the Ryan Bates trade, especially after we moved Morse, but just like we talked about in the last weeks leading the charge, McGovern has been practicing there at center. Gotta trust Cromer there. Aaron Cromer is a great offensive line coach, and they have a plan, right? Edwards is a guy that Cromer trusts a lot. The Bills brought him back to start at left guard and move McGovern at center, and we're gonna wait and see. However, with Mitch Morse out, with Ryan Bates out, and remember, Spencer Brown is going to be a free agent next season, right? So with all those guys out of the fold, don't be surprised. I don't want that. Probably you don't want that. But don't be surprised if offensive line is in conversation for the Bills' round one pick, right? We saw it's not flashy, it's not sexy to draft an offensive line in the round one. We know that. But remember, Eric Wood was a pretty good pick back in the day, right? When we drafted Wood and Levitri in back-to-back picks in the first and the second round. And just last season, we drafted Osiris Torrance, and we saw the difference he made inside this offensive line and how the Bills' offensive line became a stronger group, a group that started to bully people. And a lot of that is on Torrance. That's a physical guy. So without Morse on the fold, okay, we have our starters, but one of the starters is Spencer Brown, who finally put it together a nice season last season, and he has all the tools. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, he can move. So if he puts together a second season in a row playing above average on at right tackle, or even good tackle play from Spencer Brown at right tackle, this guy is gonna get he's gonna get paid next season, right? Guards this season are getting paid a lot of money. Imagine a right tackle that has it all in like Spencer Brown physically and can figure out the skill part. So the Bills might start to prepare for Spencer Brown leaving, or even to upgrade Edwards, to upgrade other guys, right? So it's possible that the Bills draft offensive line in round one, and Samuel signing, just like all other signings that Beane did and has done so far, they are to set the floor. We always talk about that here, how Brandon Beane likes to go to the free agency and set a floor for this team, right? And he already set a floor. He has a floor at wide receiver. If we don't add any wide receiver in the draft, you already have a floor that you can live with right now, right? And the same thing we can see on every other position. He's setting floors, and he wanna pick the best talent, and the guy we really believes is gonna pan out in the first round, in the second round, the best player available. So offensive tackle is a possibility, and Morse going away is one of the reasons it opens up as well to drafting offensive line in the round one. Ken Lewis was resigned, and I really want to talk about Ken Lewis, because if you heard his interview, this guy was promised the chance to compete for a starting spot, right? Yeah, he was pretty clear about it in his interview. And let me tell it one more time here, because I've been a little bit loud about Ken Lewis in social media already, and even here I already said good things about him. And I will tell you again, we kept Rep and we kept Lewis. And safety, the safety position is just looking so far the same thing that we saw last season with middle linebacker, because free agency start, and a lot of middle linebacker names started to sign with other teams for reasonable contracts, for cheap contracts, and we couldn't see the Bills signing nobody at middle linebacker, and everybody was like, what's going on? What are they doing? They won't sign. And every domino was falling, and the Bills didn't get into that linebacker competition. And people were like, my goodness, what are they doing? And they had the plan all along. And I actually was one of the guys to quickly point out that Terrell Bernard could be that option, according to everything that Brandon Beane said in some interviews, and how he really compared favorably to Matt Milano's skill set and style, and how cerebral he already was supposed to be as a leader of the defense, and as a green dot guy coming out of college, coming out of Baylor. And now at safety, everybody's expecting the veteran safety move, and I really believe it can still happen, obviously, but we saw several moves. Jeremy Sheen signed for $5 million a year with the Washington Commanders, right? Jordan Whitehead left the Jets and came back to the Buccaneers, $3.5 million a year. So those are deals that we'd love to see the Bills signing those guys, but it hasn't happened so far. And what has happened actually is Taylor Rapp coming back, and now Ken Lewis coming back. They are coming back for cheap, right? And they are coming back with a promise that they're gonna compete for a starting job. And don't write those guys off, because let me tell one thing: if you think Ken Lewis is a nobody, right? Jordan Poyer was even a worse nobody when he arrived in Buffalo. Nobody really knew Jordan Poyer. He was always injured in Cleveland. He didn't produce at all. He never was a starter but McDermott identified him as a potential safety, a starter at safety, and he became an all-pro. So people tend to maybe overlook Ken Lewis or to sleep on him, but the truth is, 2 years ago when he had an opportunity to play as a starter for a stretch, he played really well. And unfortunately, that JJ's catch over his head was everything people can remember right now about that stretch, right? Oh, he was supposed to if he just tips that ball down, right? If he went for the catch, it was a dumb decision. Yeah, it was a bad decision, but we can't really ignore that he was in position to make a great play against Justin Jefferson, one of the best in the league, and it was really close. And Jefferson had to make a miracle catch there, so he could guarantee that catch. So Ken Lewis had a good stretch there, and then last season, right, starting from the off season, everybody that followed the Bills off season, OTAs, training camps, every report, every media member, they were there and they were saying how good Ken Lewis was looking during that stretch before the season started, right? Flying all over the field and being everywhere. And then he got injured, and I don't really remember what was the injury, but he got injured and he missed on the first two preseason games. And when he went back and he was finally healthy to play again, and he played against the Chicago Bears, the last preseason game, he was flying all around. He was hitting hard. He had a couple of big hits, and he was everywhere playing safety. And in the beginning of the season, when Micah Hyde had his first knock and the first injury that he missed a little bit of time, I already tweeted about, look, I'd like to see Ken Lewis getting an opportunity because the guy is really ready to impress and to open some eyes. But obviously Rep was ahead of him in the pecking order, and Rep got the opportunity. But later we started to see the Bills moving Poyer to dime linebacker because Poyer wasn't really playing well at safety, and he started to make an impact with his snaps as a dime linebacker. And who got the opportunity at safety when Poyer moved there? Ken Lewis. Ken Lewis started to see the field, and he played well at safety again. He didn't make splash plays. He wasn't a guy with a lot of interceptions and a lot of big-time plays, but he played well at safety. And in the end of the year, he had some rough snaps, some rough reps, but playing at nickel cornerback in Taron Johnson's place when he got injured. But at safety, Ken Lewis really can hold his own. I feel like he already proved that. Despite being a small guy, right? He doesn't have the ideal size to play safety. He's 5'9", almost 5'10", and under 200 pounds, at least from his combine, right? I tend to believe that with his time with the Bills in a professional NFL weight room, I tend to believe he already has booked up a little bit. And I won't say I feel totally comfortable if we go to the season with Rep and Ken Lewis as the starting safeties, but I feel they have potential to surprise some people. Rep was a starter in a Super Bowl team, and he's really good playing the box safety role. He can tackle really well, what's really important for a Sean McDermott defense. And we saw at the end of the last year, he was capable of intercept some passes against the Dolphins. He made a great interception catch down the sideline, and he can make some plays. And Ken Lewis, this guy, he has the potential to be a all over the field safety, a guy that can fly around, can make plays. I really feel like he can be this kind of safety for the Bills. There are questions about his size and if he can stay healthy playing every snap at that size. But I feel there is potential, untapped potential there, and he can surprise some people. I don't think the Bills are going to the season with only Rep, Lewis, and Hamlin. Just like I said, maybe a veteran can still be signed Maybe the Bills draft a safety early, even in the first round, but probably in the second. And there are guys that you can bring on. Kinchens probably will fall because of a bad combine. That's a guy that I'd love to bring on, and I believe he can be a day one starter. There are others as well. Bullock from USC is a guy that can play center field really well, and he even matches positively alongside Rep being more of a box safety and Bullock playing that center field role and being a ball hawk. But I still believe I'm not as high on Ken Lewis as I was on Bernard, but I really believe Ken Lewis can open some eyes and surprise a lot of people. Bills Mafia, don't forget to hit that like button, to subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings channel, to download the episode right after it's finished here live. Download the episode on Spotify podcast, aggregator, Apple Podcasts as well, and help us keep producing content. Feel free to interact in the chat. Some people here. Good afternoon to Nelson. Franklin is also here. Go Bills. So let's continue with the list. Just close out about wide receivers and safeties, right? And still talking about safeties, Jordan Poyer moved to the Dolphins. He's signed 1 year deal there. And I know a lot of people are mad because of seeing Poyer as a Dolphin. It's weird. But honestly, I really believe just like when Mario Williams left the Bills and went to the Dolphins and he wasn't nowhere near the Mario Williams we were used of seeing as a Bill. I feel Poyer is going to struggle as a Dolphin as well, right? And okay, never doubt those guys, right? He was a great safety for the Bills, one of the best ever, and maybe he can shut me up and shut me up and convince that he still had a little bit in the tank to play well for the Dolphins. I really doubt it. And I feel like the only chance he can contribute there if they realize he can't play safety every down anymore and use him as a dime linebacker, then on passing downs, this way he can have an impact. But let's be honest, we never saw Poyer and Hyde playing outside the Bills schemes, right? And the Bills schemes were great. They made the schemes work, but the schemes were great for them as well. I don't know how he's going to be used by the Dolphins, but I'm not really worried about Poyer haunting us this season. It can happen, sure, but I don't feel the possibility is real, right? I don't feel like it's a big possibility of happening against the Bills. So the other moves, Gabe Davis to Jacksonville Jaguars. God bless him, right? Happy for Gabe. He's a hard worker. He was a leader. He was a great guy, but he wasn't good for the Bills anymore, right? Most of Josh Allen interceptions were trying to throw passes to Gabe Davis, and sometimes he running wrong routes, sometimes he not coming for the ball, sometimes he dropping the ball right getting right over his hands to defender hand. So it was time, and he goes to the Jaguars, and God bless him there, right? But I really won't miss Gabe Davis, really won't, right? Leonard Floyd to the 49ers, good signing for the 49ers, a guy that should be missed by the Bills, right? But he was clear when he said that he would go after the money, and he did that, right? AJ Penez and Daquan Jones are back. And those two I really like Daquan Jones signing. I tried to sign him back every time I did a mock off season and mock free agency here, and the Bills got value, signed him for 2 years, same value as he got before. And but he's old. Man, Daquan Jones was one of the best defensive tackles in the league before he got injured last season, right? I'm not expecting him to be an all-pro player again, play at that level next season, but it's not that far-fetched. It can happen. Anyways, he offers you a rock-solid piece at nose tackle. We know that we can count on him doing his job there, and a nice piece in the rotation, a nice veteran to be there. and a guy that can lead those this group in the defensive line, and a guy that can be trusted there. So he's a valuable piece, and it's fine to get him back. AJ Peneza, I'm not as high on him as a lot of people, but with the value that we got him back, we saw other people getting a lot of money. So a guy that can offer you 6.5, 7 sacks per season in a rotational role, coming off the bench, and a guy that was drafted by Beane, and this was actually, he was built in Buffalo because he was a totally different player in college, right? And they asked him to change his body, change his style, and so there is still untapped potential, maybe, right? I feel like this last season was the first season Epeneza finally was more comfortable with his size. He wasn't looking too small, because he looked very small after he made his the change in his body. But he felt more comfortable with that size, more powerful, again a little bit more powerful, right? And still with speed. So I feel like he can continue to be a valuable piece. I wouldn't bet on him being the starter, but maybe he can continue to grow and become an even better piece at the right end position. But at least a valuable piece in the rotation. So it really has its value, and I feel like from the money that they gave Peneza, around 5 million, 6 max, um, it's a good value to bring him back and to bet on him to see if he really break out in the next couple of years. Naheem Hines went out to the Browns, right? Poyer to the Dolphins, already said. Dane Jackson to the Panthers. Dane Jackson got really paid, and Dane Jackson is way better than most people give him credit for, right? He's a guy that doesn't have the size, the speed, the physical part to be an elite cornerback, but everything else I believe he has, because he's always in right position. He tackles well. He's a smart player. So happy for them to get paid, to see the bag and get it from Carolina and get an opportunity to start there. Happy for him. Cyron Neal going to Miami. He's a really good special teamer, right? And we never like to see good former players going to the Dolphins. Ty Johnson returning to Buffalo. I really love this move because Ty Johnson played really well as running back too down the stretch, and again setting the floor, right? You have a nice floor with Cook and then Ty Johnson, and if you can draft a rookie running back and this guy can surprise you and surpass Ty Johnson in the pecking order, great. But if he can, Ty Johnson is a really good backup running back, and we could see that last season, and I'm happy he's back in Buffalo. Tim Settle signing with the Texans. He wasn't a guy that I really wanted back. And Trent Sherfield signing with the Minnesota Vikings. Sherfield, who unfortunately didn't work out for the Bills, but he had his moment against the Dolphins. In the game, the Bills clinched the division, clinched the playoffs. So at least it was worth it to pay Sherfield for one day against his former team to have an impact. And I'm happy it happened, but I'm good with him going away and signing with the Dolphins, with the Vikings as well. Then the free agents is the free agents the Bills brought in from other teams. Mitch Trubisky. I really don't like him as a backup, but one thing I can deny, he's better than Kyle Allen, so it's an improvement, right? Another thing, he was cheap. People were a little bit worried about the money that was offered to Trubisky, but look, my perfect backup for the Bills would be Tyrod Taylor, because I believe that's a guy that could come in, play a couple of games, and keep the ship on the right track, right? I believe Tyrod Taylor would be ideal as a backup, and he's such a good backup that the Jets paid him almost the three times more than what we paid Trubisky. So the Bills can't really afford to pay it for Tyrod, and actually the fit for Tyrod with the Jets is really good, and with all the crazy stuff Aaron Rodgers is involved, the Jets could be dangerous with Tyrod, but Unfortunately for Tyrod, unfortunately for the Jets, thankfully for us as Bills fans. Um, and again, I never like to celebrate injuries, and especially for a guy like Tyrod, who I really respect and love as a former Bills quarterback, an important one. But unfortunately, he hasn't been able to stay healthy anymore, right? Every time he gets an opportunity, he deals with some kind of health problem, and so it seems like he can't stay healthy for an entire season anymore. It happened again last season with the Giants. So he's a backup. I'd like to have him with the Bills, but too expensive. And Trubisky, uh, we really hope he never sees the field and everything is all right. Matt Heck is back, and the Bills have to make a decision on Sam Martin because of a roster bonus that should be paid for to him soon. I don't know. I don't think the Bills will pay this bonus to Martin, and I don't believe Matt Heck is better than Martin punting. He isn't. But one thing for sure, the best Tyler best season was with Matt Heck holding for him, right? And and I can see the Bills taking a step back at the punting department if they can a step forward with Bess getting back at that all pro bowl level he was playing when Matt Heck was his holder. So that's something to keep an eye on in the punter competition if it happens during these OTAs and training camps. Nick Morrow, linebacker from the Philadelphia Eagles, an interesting signing, a signing that I really liked because that's a smart linebacker, a guy that can play middle and weak side linebacker, a guy that can learn the defense and can has experience wearing the green dot and having being the communicator of the defense and with the coaching staff. So he is an important signing for the Bills. Um, we don't know if Matt Milano will be ready for the season, unfortunately, with his injury, a freaky injury. But if he isn't, ideally Dorian Williams is ready to step in his year two and to make a jump in production, just we could see Bernard doing his second year, uh, taking over the middle linebacker spot. If Dorian isn't ready, Morrow can fill in. Also, Terrell Bernard is awesome. You know, you heard it first here, and you know nobody is a biggest Bernard fan than myself, and I really believe he's uh, in position to get even better and to establish himself as the next big time Bills linebacker. But yeah, he's small. He's a small linebacker, right? And for this kind of small linebackers, it's difficult sometimes to stay healthy for entire seasons. And and we saw what kind of prejudice and how bad it was for the Bills when we lost Bernard. It was almost like game over when we lost Bernard last season, unfortunately. So having Morrow to fill in if needed and to be able to call the defense and to he won't be able to play at Bernard's level, but to be able to not be AJ Klein level of uh, of mismatch in the middle of the Bills defense, right? Playing middle linebacker, it's already an improvement over last year. You gotta have a plan B, and Morrow is a plan B there, so I love it. Mac Hollins, special teamer, more a replacement for Siren New than a replacement for Gabe Davis. More a replacement for Trent Sherfield than a replacement for Gabe Davis. Interesting guy, funny guy, team captain in several other teams, so a guy that should be a contributor and a guy that Bills Mafia should really like. And then Curtis Samuel, right? Curtis Samuel, a guy that I already talked a lot. So those are the additions the Bills have made so far. And I kind of like them. I feel like they are good signings. Um, with the situation the Bills have been on with the cap situation and the range that Beane has had to work with. So To close it out, we have still free agents that are still available: Trey White, Micah Hyde, Dante Hardy, Jordan Phillips, Tyler Matakevich. Puna Ford already signed. He signed with, I don't remember now if it was with the Chargers or with the Texans, right? This tweet is from yesterday. Tyrell Dodson already signed with the Seahawks. Damon Harris, Linval Joseph, Latavius Murray, Shaq Lawson, who should be back with the Bills maybe, in the minimum again, and Kyle Allen, right? And all the guys with an X are guys that matter in a compensatory. Sorry, the X are no compensatory picks. The guys with an asterisk those are the guys that matter in the compensatory pick formula, right? And we have Dane Jackson here. We have Leonard Floyd. We have Gabriel Davis. We have, Mitch Morse wasn't. So we have all those three guys matter. They matter in the compensatory pick formula for next season's draft, not for this season, right? So Bills Mafia, overall, I really feel like we couldn't expect much more from the Bills free agency, right? It's difficult to make splash moves without money and without cap space. The Bills made some moves with McGovern restructuring, Russell Douglas restructuring, Dion Dawkins extension, Josh Allen restructuring, Von Miller taking a pay cut, Dawson Knox taking a pay cut. So the Bills made enough moves to open some cap space to be able to bring back their own guys and to bring on some reinforcements, right? The Bills avoided touching Stephon Diggs' contract, what says a lot about how they see the situation with Stephon Diggs right now. We can't be. I'm not out there saying, "Oh, Diggs wants out." No, right? On the other hand, and I'm not out there saying, "Oh, Diggs isn't the same anymore." No, but I can't also 100% tell you that everything is wonderful, everything is great for Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, and that he's 100% still in his prime, number one wide receiver, top 5 in the league. No, we can't guarantee that. We have some questions regarding Diggs for next season, and we have some questions regarding Diggs in Brady's offense and how Brady will adapt, how he will use Diggs next season, if he's gonna be happy with this use, if he's gonna increase, if he's gonna decrease. We don't know. We really don't know. We gotta wait and see. So the Bills they haven't touched that contract. They are keeping the options open, not for the season obviously, but for next year on, right? And it's totally normal with a guy getting over 30. He was before the Bills brought in Daquan. No, but Daquan Jones is a defensive player, right? But he was the oldest player in the Bills offense, right? He's set up to turn 31. So it's unfortunately this time comes for everybody. Just like I said, it came to Moulds, it came to Evans, it came to Stevie, and at some point it will come to Diggs as well. Love the guy, love the impact he's had as a Bill, one of the best Bills ever, one of the best Bills wide receivers ever, right? But we don't know, and maybe this draft we can draft a guy that can take over Diggs' place in the future, not for this season, but next season on or in 2 years. Maybe Adonai Mitchell can be this kind of guy. Maybe Coleman, maybe Franklin. I don't like him, but a lot of people like Franklin there, or Xavier Worthy or Leggett. A lot of options. All that matters is whoever the Bills like, and whoever the Bills see as a guy with potential to be this next guy. They should go after this guy, because if Diggs can rebound this year and play great for 3-4 more years, awesome. Retires the Bill, have great seasons, win a Super Bowl. I'd be happy and really happy for the guy. Really like him, but we don't know how long Diggs will still continue to be that number one guy. So the Bills are setting themselves in position to deal with whatever happens, right? And overall, with the signings and the guys that were brought back, it depends on where did you stand before those moves. Because for some people, the Bills roster is bad. It's a bad roster that is carried by Josh Allen, and if not Josh Allen, this roster wouldn't be nowhere near close a championship level roster. And for these people, right, those moves don't cut it because you are bringing back those guys and you are adding some long key guys, some guys with not a lot of untapped potential or not big time players. So for the guys that don't like the Bills roster and think Josh Allen is the guy carrying this roster, you probably not aren't happy with this offseason, and there wouldn't be any way you could be happy other than maybe moving on from McDermott, from Beane, and having a total rebuild, because that's the plan, that's the process, that's the roster that Beane has been building since he took over, and he wouldn't simply throw it all out and rebuild it. So for people that don't like this roster, they are probably not happy. For other people that think the Bills have a great roster, a stacked roster, a Super Bowl caliber roster, these people is probably very happy because you could bring back Epeneza, you could bring back, you could extend Dawkins, right? And despite the pain of losing Poyer, Hyde, Morse, right? Those guys are getting older, and you brought back Rapp and Lewis. You brought back a lot of guys that can continue uh, this roster to making this roster to produce and to play at high level. So for people that already like the Bills roster, they probably love these free agents. I feel like I stand kind of in between those two, more to the side of liking than disliking. I feel like the Bills had some opportunities to add some different players and not bring some guys back. For example, at safety, you didn't necessarily need to bring Rapp, bring Ken Lewis back. You could go at different directions. Sheen was there for 5 million, right? Whitehead was there for 3.5 million. So a lot of guys were available in the Bills range, but the Bills decided that what they already had was good enough, and went after Rapp and Ken Lewis. And I can understand the continuity there, and why the Bills would go that direction. I can understand that. With Epeneza, the same way, he's not overpaid, but you could have tried Anthony Jennings, Clelin Ferrell. You could have tried other guys maybe for a change, guys that didn't work out elsewhere but could work out here, right? But no, the Bills prefer to bring back Epeneza and trust the guy that they invested a lot since drafting him in the second round. And I can understand it as well, again, because he still has some untapped potential. Maybe he can break out this year, maybe. So there is value there, right? So I can understand the Bills choosing to bring back their own guys. Um, I feel like this roster isn't a roster by itself that is Super Bowl caliber, right? I don't think it's a roster that's Super Bowl caliber without Josh Allen. If you put a decent quarterback there, but not a superstar quarterback like Josh Allen, this roster isn't winning the AFC last season. This roster isn't competing against the Chiefs and against the best team in the leagues. It's obviously a big part of that is having Josh Allen. But I feel like this roster is good enough for a guy like Josh Allen to carry them to a Super Bowl appearance, to a Super Bowl win. This roster can be good enough for that, right? So hopefully they can stay healthy next season. Hopefully Beane can sign maybe a couple, maybe one safety now, and a couple of guys to set a floor, a higher floor on the positions of need, and especially hopefully Beane can hit in the draft, because the Bills' hope for star players isn't in free agency anymore. It's on the draft, right? And last season, the last draft was really good with Kincaid, with Torrance, guys that seem like they're gonna become superstars in their positions. So it was very positive. Terrell Bernard was this kind of pick in the third round as well. But before that, the Bills with Brandon Beane in those drafts, he always was able to find contributors and good players late in the draft, but not star players, right? And I feel like that's what's separating the Bills from getting past the Chiefs. And not only that, but it's part of it, right? Greg Rousseau not being a stud superstar defensive end so far made the difference against the Chiefs for sure. Ed Oliver, he finally is trending in that direction, but he didn't, or he hasn't been a superstar defensive tackle being drafted in the top 10. So it's part of the Bills not getting Super Bowl yet, right? Um, Even Tremaine Edmonds, a guy that Bills traded up for him, Kyrie Elam, who has been a miss so far. So a lot of those misses have contributed to the Bills not getting there, and that's why Josh gotta carry them, because it is a good roster. You have good players there, but you need a little bit more. You need more help to Josh, right? And hopefully the Bills can draft this kind of guy at wide receiver in round one this season, or this kind of guy at safety maybe, or even a defensive tackle, edge, right? Even if they go the offensive line direction, another stud like Torrance, it would be awesome. So the Bills got a hit in this draft so they can find more star players. The Bills need star potential because they have a good roster with good players, but superstars, we have Josh Allen and nothing else. Stephon Diggs was a superstar, but he hasn't been recently. Hopefully he can get back to that. And Kincaid is trending that direction. I feel like Bernard, Milano is there, but Bernard is trending that direction. So hopefully the Bills can hit and can get better in the draft. That's it, Bills Mafia. Hit that like button, subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings. I'll be back on Sunday with the leading the charge in Portuguese for Brazil and Portuguese-speaking countries, all Latin America. So really appreciate you taking your time joining me today on this Friday afternoon. And next Friday we'll be back. See you around. And as always, go Bills.